ॐ भूरभुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति. Namaste, dear friends. I am going to start the last video on the book Light on the Teachings of Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi. I start with the verse 271. One's lying, having forgotten one's existence, consciousness, I am, and having drooped is tamoguna. One's being confused, mistaking one's existence, consciousness, I am to be the alien feeling, and this body is Rajoguna, the power of clear discernment, Sapurna Shakti, which experiences one's existence, consciousness, I am is Sattva Guna. Such is the nature of our illusion, Maya, that is the concealing of our true nature by the former two gunas is ignorance or deception, avidya maya, while the revealing of our true nature by the latter guna is true knowledge, vidya maya. Verse 272. Even when one drooped as in sleep, having forgotten oneself, the consciousness I am was nonetheless existing and shining. Even when one was confused, mistaking oneself to be the body, as in waking and dream, the consciousness I am was still existing and shining as the base and spot of the perverted consciousness. I am the body. Therefore, when I thus exist and know myself as the one who existed and shone in the above two states, what obstacle can ever arise to impede me from existing and knowing my existence? Verse 273. Therefore, one's lying, having forgotten one's existence, consciousness, I am, and having drooped, is not something which ever truly happened. One's being confused, mistaking one's existence, consciousness, I am to be the alien feeling, I am the body, is not something which ever truly happened. One's newly experiencing one's existence, consciousness, I am, is not something which ever truly happens. Such is the nature of the experience of true knowledge, jnana. Verse 274. Only so long as it falsely appears as if we have forgotten our existence, consciousness, I am, can an effort arise, an effort, tapas or practice, sadhana, to know and attain self. After we have clearly known that we have never forgotten self and that the feeling as if we have forgotten self is mere imagination, kalpana, there will be no practice sadhana for us to do. The truth is that we ever exist only as mere being. Verse 275. To think that we have at some time lost or forgotten yourself is not true. If on the contrary it were true, then even if we were to make effort and attain self, we may again lose it. Then what to do? Verse 276. This true state of self is not a state that can undergo changes such as being lost or again being attained. Know that this state is that which is never lost. In front of the clear light of the sun of self-knowledge, which is devoid of changes such as being lost or being attained. How can such changes which are in unreal darkness take place? Verse 277. This existing reality is not something that can be reached and attained like an object other than I. All that is to be done is only to abide as it is, having set aside the empty imagination that has risen within us that we have lost that state. Setting aside that imagination is to abide in self, having turned our attention within, withdrawing it from all other objects. The true state is nothing other than this. Heading is 50. Untouching Union. Asparsa Yoga. 278. Our existence and the consciousness of our existence ever remain unseparated from us. When it is so, why should the state in which we remain as we are be called a state of yoga in which we have approached and united with our own existence? We are always only one. Therefore, the natural state in which we abide as we are is not a state of our uniting with ourself, nor is it a state of our becoming ourself. Declare that state is the state of not touching as person. That is the state of separation from all adjuncts such as the body and mind. Verse 279. To talk in admiration about going and uniting hereafter with our natural state, which is non-dual and which can never become two, and to glorify that this is yoga, is appropriate only for people who are deluded into believing that their ego life, which is experienced only in the darkness of ignorance, is the real life. Know clearly that the truth is that no yoga is necessary for our real nature. Trans. The above two verses were written to explain the significance of the term Asparsa Yoga, which literally means untouching union and which is used in certain Vedantic texts such as the Mandukya Karikas. To unite with something, one must touch it, but since we have never been separated from the reality, which is our own true nature, how are we either to touch it or to unite with it? Therefore, if the natural state in which we abide as self is to be called a state of union or yoga, it is only an untouching union or as prasa yoga, that is a state of oneness, which is not brought about afresh by any act of union, but which is realized to be the ever existing non dual state of existence, consciousness from which we have never been separated. Verse 280. Who is a Jnani? Verse 280 is the intellect which decides this person is a jnani, that person is an ajnani. Knowledge, jnana or ignorance, ajnana. Jnana is only one, therefore, even the jnani who is seen by the mind, the ajnana that sees jnanis as many, is only a product of that ajnana. 281. You, the mind that sees others, are yourself a mere thought. Therefore, the person who is said by you to be a pure soul or a Mahatma is only one among the many thoughts that are thought by you, the first thought. How can such a thought, which is an illusory product of Ajnana, be a supreme knower of self? Ajnana, Atma Jnani, reflecting in this manner, know this truth. Verse 282. To say he is a good soul, a jnani, no, is untrue. Even to say all people are jnanis is untrue, because to see as if many people are existing is the sign of ignorance. Only one person truly exists, that is you. Know this. Verse 283. In the true outlook of the jnani, there is no ajnani, because there is no one who is other than himself. The Ajnani pointing to be a body and saying this person is a Jnani gives the name Jnani only to a body. Due to this defective outlook, whereby the Ajnani sees even the Jnani as a body, he becomes one who sees even the Jnani only as an Ajnani. Verse 284. Even though you may visit any number of Mahatmas and even though they may exhibit all the eightfold occult powers, Ashtasiddhi, know that he who turns your attention towards self, saying, without allowing your mind to go after these juggleries, turn within, is only the true pure soul Mahatma. Let the individual Jivatma who enters the lofty Himalayas and forests seeking Mahatmas enter instead the heart by turning within seeking where am I and thereby become the blissful self Sukhatma Savrupa. Thereafter all who were seen externally as pure souls Mahatmas will be experienced by him to be his own self, Atma Savrupa. This is the teaching given by Sri Ramana Bhagwan. Verse 286. Before one knows oneself in whatever way one may try, it is not possible for one to know the real tapasvis, the jnanis, who ever remain in the egoless state of self-abidance, the true state of tapas. Therefore, giving up all the futile efforts to seek externally to know pure souls, Mahatmas, cling firmly to the great and worthwhile effort of attending to self, which will destroy the unreal feeling I am an individual jiva. Verse 287. Therefore, if any thought arises in you hereafter to seek to determine whether someone is a jnani or an agyani, reject that thought immediately by inquiring who am I, who rise to determine about the state of others, and thus merge your mind in the heart, the source from which that thought arose, by turning within and keenly fixing your attention in that source. Verse 288. If you give up the effort to know whether a certain person is a jnani or an ajnani and instead scrutinize who is it who feels that this person exists, the answer will be known, it is I. Then scrutinize immediately who is this rising. The true Jnani will then shine forth, being clearly known to be your own self. Verse 289. If someone is a Jnani, what is that to us? So long as we do not know yourself, that will be of no benefit to us. On scrutiny, Jnana alone is the Jnani. The Jnani is not a human form. He is only the supreme space of pure consciousness. That supreme space is our true nature. Verse 290. Therefore, by self-inquiry, destroy the petty mind which seeks to know this person is a jnani, that person is a jnani. The jnana, the pure self-consciousness, I am that remains after the mind has thus been destroyed, which shines as one devoid of any other, and which does not rise and jump as I am this or I am that, is alone the Jnani. Seeing the Jnani thus by silence, the thought-free state which remains after the mind has been destroyed, is alone seeing him correctly. Heading is 52nd, the ultimate secret of spiritual practice. Sadhano, Sadhanotva Rahasya. Verse 291. Among the three places or persons, the first, second, and third persons, and among the three times, the present, past, and future, the first person known in Tamil as Tanmay Idam or the selfness place, and the present time are the place and the time that Sadguru Sri Ramana told us to scrutinize as our dhyana, laksha, or target for attention. If you abide attending with subtle vigilance to either of these, investigating who is this first person, who signs as I, or what is this present time that signs as the consciousness and you will experience the supreme joy of self, Atam Prabhoga, having accomplished yoga and having become the one who has attained Siddhi, the state of final liberation. See and feast upon self thus. 11 verses on self inquiry. Atam Vichara Partikam. First, thinking is a virti, being is not a virti, thought. If we scrutinize who is thinking, the thinking process will come to as standstill. Even when thoughts do not exist, do you have any doubt about your own existence as I am? Abiding in your own existence, which shines as I am the source from which all thoughts rise, is the state of self-abidance. Abide thus. Second, he who thinks is the soul or jiva, he who exist as I am without any thought is God. If the thinker thinks with great love of that which merely exists, I am, this self-word turned thought will become the thought-free consciousness, which will destroy all thoughts. When the thinker thus dies along with his thoughts, the state of abidance, which then remains shining as I am, is the state of union with God or Shiv Shayujya. Third, he who thinks I am so and so is just a thought like all the other thoughts. But of all thoughts, this thought I am so and so alone is the first. The soul who thinks I am so and so is merely a reflection of our real self. When we abide and shine only as that real self, the thought I am so and so will not rise. Fourth, in dreamless sleep, this thought, I am so and so, does not at all exist. In the true state of self knowledge, also the thought, I am so and so, does not at all exist. But in the states of waking and dream, which rise in between the darkness of sleep and the pure light of self knowledge, the thought, I am this body, seems to appear and disappear. Therefore, this limited I is not real. This I is only a thought. Fifth, the flourishing of this I is only the flourishing of misery. This I is that which is called the ego. This ego I rises and flourishes only because of non-enquiry, avichara. If we inquire who is this and thereby vigilantly scrutinize only the feeling I without attending to the adjunct so and so with which it is mixed, this adjunct will disappear since it is devoid of any real existence. Sixth, the second and third persons, the known objects, subsist only because of the first person, the knowing subject, who is the root. If the mind, which is ever wavering because of attending to second and third persons, turns and attains to the first person, who rises as I am so, the adjunct so and so will cease to exist, and the real self, which always exists as I am, will shine forth spontaneously. That real self, which is the indestructible base of the first person alone, is true knowledge, jnana. 7. Thinking about second and third person is foolishness because when we attend to second and third person, the mental activity, manovrittis rise up and multiply. But the act of attending to the first person is equal to committing suicide because only by scrutinizing the first person will the ego die of its own accord. 8. Attending to any second or third person instead of turning and attending to this I, the first person feeling that is always experienced by everyone is only ignorance, ajnana. If you ask the ego, the feeling I am so and so is only a product of ignorance. So attending to the ego is also ignorance, is it not? Why then should we attend to this I? Listen to what is said below. 9. Why is the ego destroyed when we scrutinize what am I? Because this I thought, aham virti, is a reflected ray of self-consciousness and thus, unlike other thoughts which are devoid of consciousness, it is always directly connected with its source. Therefore, when our attention dives deeper and deeper within by following this reflected ray I, the length of this reflected ray I will diminish until finally it has shrunk to nothing. When the ego, the feeling I am so and so, thus disappears, the consciousness that will remain shining as I am is the true knowledge of self. 10th, do not do anything thinking it should be done only by me. Nothing is done by you because you are simply nothing. Knowing this truth from the beginning, if you refrain entirely from rising as I am the doer, all actions will happen of their own accord and your peace will ever remain undisturbed. 11. If we scrutinize what is the reality that ever exists, we will find that nothing in this world is real since self alone is real. Let us mentally renounce everything else and ever abide unshakably as that reality which will remain shining alone as I am. This alone is the service enjoined upon us by Lord Ramna, who ever abides as the eternal self. Note: abiding in this state, having attained the supreme bliss which is devoid of bondage and liberation, is abiding in the service of God, says Sri Bhagwan in verse 29 of Upadesa Undiyar. 40 verses on renunciation. Turavu Narpadu in invocation. First, may the feet of Sri Ramana Bhagavan joyfully be my sport to enable me to sing this 40 verses on renunciation, Turavu Narpadu, expressing ideas which are agreeable to the divine heart of Lord Ramana, who has renounced both renunciation and attachment by abiding as self, the supreme bliss which transcends both liberation, renunciation, and bondage attachment. 2. Falling prostrate at the feet of Sri Ramana, who graciously manifested and dwelt in this world as the God whom we have seen in front of us with our own eyes, and who lived as the king of both inner renunciation and outer renunciation. May I rise and sing this Tirau Narpadu text. What is the purpose of embracing the state of renunciation, sannyasa? Is it not only to attain here in this very life the state of abiding as the infinite reality, Pripurana Brahma, which is devoid of any deficiency by destroying the ego and by uniting with God, that pure infinite reality, infinite reality? If anyone says that there is an other purpose in embracing sannyasa, the Vedas will not accept it too. The renunciation of the ego is alone sannyasa. Instead of renouncing the ego, merely renouncing and leaving one's home and family is of no benefit. The renunciation of the ego is alone liberation. That renunciation alone is self-knowledge, jnana. That renunciation alone is bliss. Know this for certain. Third, the afflictions that possess us exist without leaving us even for a moment in two forms as I and mine, along with the renunciation of the nineness, mindness, that is mamkara, which is the feeling these things are mine, to renounce the I-ness ahankara, which is the feeling I am this body, is the highest among all the kinds of renunciation. Fourth, by changing one's external appearance, uh, Vesha, by wearing ochre cloth, shaving one's head or carrying a water pot, Karmandalu, nothing special Vishesha is achieved unless you can discover the peerless means by which to bring about the death of yourself, the ego. Oh, my dear sir, your renunciation will not yield any benefit. Fifth, know that a person who proudly feels, I have attained renunciation, sannyasa, which is the highest among the four external modes of life, asramas. Therefore, people belonging to the other three levels of development, asramas, should praise and worship me with reverential fear and respect. Can I never attain salvation, the state of self-abidance? 6. If those people whose minds are raising with the proud feeling, I may renunciate, sannyasi, would ponder over and understand the subtle truth contained in one lesson, Upadesa, revealed by Sadguru Sri Ramana, namely to destroy the blameful ego of the renunciate sannyasa or the man of highest learning, Brahmana, is indeed very difficult. They would be enabled thereby to attain salvation. The lessons or instructions, Upadesa, of Sri Bhagwan referred to here is that contained in verse 162 of Garland of Guru's sayings. The powerful hero who has destroyed the ego, the feeling I am the body is alone the true sannyasi and true Brahmana. However, to destroy entirely the ego born by the sannyasi or the Brahmana who has self-conceit, feeling I belong to the highest asrama or I belong to the highest caste, oh, is very difficult. 7. If we investigate why the injunction is given to a wandering religious mendicant, Privrajaka sannyasi, without remaining in the same village or town where you remained yesterday, before night fall today move to a different village or town, we will find that it is in order to prevent his mind from developing a liking and attachment towards people who praise and honor him. 8. If a wandering religious mendicant Pre-Vrajaka sannyasi wanders about depending entirely upon God to provide his material needs each day without ever seeking to acquire or save anything for the morrow with the thought, let this place of abode or this food be available for me for another occasion. His faith in God will increase and he will gain the strength to live with an attitude of complete dependence upon God alone and not upon any people. 9. Not knowing that by this wandering Parivrajaka life he should thus learn to develop the quality of depending on only upon God for everything. If a renunciate sannyasi thinks every time since I am a renunciate sannyasi, the householders are duty bound to honor me and to provide all my needs. Know that he is unfit for the life of renunciation sannyasa. 10th, the renunciate sannyasi has undertaken this wandering pre-vrajaka life only in order that he should by practice gain the strength to live depending entirely upon God. If instead he expects that the householders should take care of him, he is placing his faith only in those householders and not in God. 11. For a renunciate sannyasi, begging is a pure and exalted spiritual practice, sadhana. If people belonging to any of the other three orders of life, asramas, say that by his begging, the sannyasi is being a burden to others, they are ignorant of the truth. If the sannyasi is unable to endure the mean words of worldly people who speak, thus know that he is not a true sannyasi. 12. A steadfast, renunciate sannyasi who has abundant strength of mind does not beg for his food due to poverty. His begging is a training which he undergoes in order to attain a state of mind in which he can experience an equal love towards those who revile him with mean words and those who praise him with kind words. 13. The benefit which a true renunciate sannyasi is to gain by living a wandering pre-vrajika life is to attain a state of mind which is fully contented, being endowed both with an attitude of complete dependence upon God alone at all times and with a patient endurance which cannot be shaken by either the abuse or the praise of others. 14. But alas, not knowing this truth, so many people nowadays, after assuming the austere garb of the blemishless order of a renunciate sannyasa asrama, are seen to be seeking and running after worldly people who possess much wealth or who hold high positions in society instead of depending entirely upon God as their sole refuge and support. 15. Some other renunciate sannyasis are caught in the bondage of trying to accumulate wealth by power of mantras or practicing astrology by giving medicines and by other such tricky means, tantras. For such people who are caught thus in bondage, tell me what is the use of their assuming the outward guise of a sannyasi by growing a beard and long matted hair, by wearing austere clothes and by carrying a stick and a water pot. 16. When will they ever attain salvation? Those people who give vermilion kumkuma and sacred as vibhuti as divine food prasada, gathering a crowd of people around themselves and proclaiming that they will give divine sight darsana to common people on only one day a month or one day a year, thus consider themselves to be exalted gods who are far superior to all other people, even though they are in truth only petty egos who are devoid of even the least greatness. Therefore, if you wish to be saved, be still, giving up all such pomp and show. 17. A person who is naturally humble and submissive to every person and every living being, having the constant remembrance that except himself, each and every living being in this world possesses some good quality and is in some way superior to himself, is alone the king among true renunciate sannyasis. 18. A person who has attained true renunciation is verily dead to this world. Such a true renunciate sannyasi is indeed superior to all the other people of this world. He is the embodiment of all virtue and ethical conduct, dharma. Therefore, he alone is an object worthy to be worshipped and adored by this entire world. 19. If it is asked how such a true renunciate sannyasi has attained the greatness of being worshipped by all the other people in this world, the answer will be that since he is completely devoid of ego, he has truly bowed his head in humility and paid obeisance to each and every person before they have paid obeisance to him. Therefore, what he has given to others naturally comes to him. 20. On the other hand, the renunciate sannyasi who is devoid of true humility and whose mind is full of guile, thinking all other people should worship and pay obeisance to me, will be left without any means of attaining salvation and will become entirely worthless, sinking lower and lower on account of the surging and swelling of his ego. 21. If a person takes renunciation, sannyasa, with the desire that other people should honor and revere him, that renunciation sannyasa will only destroy his true happiness. The abstinence or austerity which is to be observed in this world by a pure renunciate sannyasi who has given up all worldly attachments is only to refrain even in the least from becoming a victim to the disease of self-esteem or pride. 22. If a renunciate sannyasi endowed with good qualities who lives as a Kutichaka, an ascetic who remains in one place, living in a small hut instead of wandering from place to place, gradually allows himself to become a Mathadhipati. Mathadhipati, the head of a monastery or religious institute. He will be making himself into a place meant for the experience of all kinds of unbearable suffering. Therefore, a good sannyasi will never desire to become a head of a monastery, Mathadhipati. 23. For an ordinary worldly person, there is the trouble of having only one family, but a renunciate sannyasi who has thus become a head of a monastery, Mathadhipati, has become a person caught in the bondage of having many crores of families. All that is gained by him from the religious foundation, Matha, that has come to him is only misery. Thus, the action of becoming a Mathadhipati is nothing but one's cheating oneself. 24. Hence, when seen from the standpoint of a true aspirant who seeks only liberation, all endeavors such as establishing ashrams and religious institutions are only purchasing great suffering and difficulties for a price. To seek to establish ashramas and public institutions by collecting money, by going from place to place, climbing on platforms and giving lectures and discourses, just like going and playing with a venomous snake. 25. Since, as per an ancient saying, to a renunciate sannyasi, even a king is mere straw, a renunciate should not engage in politics. Know that Having completely renounced the liking to enjoy even the ordinary rights to which one is entitled as a citizen of society, a renunciate should live majestically without being a subject or a slave to anyone. 26. With the firm dispassion, vairagya of not cherishing or holding anything for the morrow, having an unshakable faith that God will provide you each day with whatever is good for you. Pass the days of accepting whatever comes to you of its own accord on each occasion without giving any work to your brain to investigate whether each thing which comes is good or bad and to decide whether it is to be accepted or rejected. 27. If you who have come to this world alone live alone, being free of attachment to anything and subside in self by knowing that it is the reality of yourself, know that that is the greatest help which you can render to all the other people in this world. 28. Going and approaching the people of the world, collecting money and engaging in many external activities in the name of social service, paropkara seva and desireless action, niskamaya karma, is not behavior befitting the purity of renunciation. Without a sense of doership, do whatever good action comes to you of its own accord, forcibly prompting you to act by making you feel that it is necessary to do so and then at once forget it. 29. He who remains like a dead person in all worldly affairs without rising as I under any circumstances is alone the most exalted among the renunciate sannyasis. He alone is a Jivan Mukta, enlightened while still in the body. He alone is a true non-doer because he has no sense of doership in whatever actions he may appear to be doing. Therefore, he alone is a true karma yogi, a person who does actions without any selfish motivation or desire. 30. The path of karma yoga, selfless service, which is practiced by anyone other than such a Jivan Mukta, sees previous verse, will gradually remove the impurities from the mind and it will stop with thus imparting complete purity of mind. After thus attaining purity of mind, it is proper that a person should give up the path of karma yoga and should follow either the path of devotion bhakti or the path of self inquiry and thereby attain the egoless state of self. 31. The fruit to be attained from selfless service, karma yoga, which bestows purity of mind, chitta shuddhi, is only to make one mature and fit to follow the path of devotion, bhakti or self-inquiry. But unless a true renunciate sannyasi is already fit to follow either of these two paths, know that he will not gain the real fruit of the renunciation sannyasa which he has taken. 32. For a person who has taken a renunciation sannyasa in order to attain God, the supreme reality is not proper to go outward seeking worldly people and climbing on platforms to give lectures instead of turning within towards God and becoming established in self-abidance. If a renunciate sannyasi turns towards the alluring and deceptive world, diverting his mind to the habit of giving lectures, he will be doing great harm to himself. 33. You have taken this renunciation, sannyasa, not for the sake of giving spiritual instructions, upadesa, to the people of this world, but only to attain the infinite self and to remain firmly established in self-abidance. Why do you forget this truth and wander about in the world giving lectures? 34. Only the real renunciate sannyasi who never deviates from the state of firm self-abidance is a person who is correctly teaching true knowledge to all other people rather than by climbing on platform to give lectures by mouth. If one turns the mind within away from the world and abides in self, then the entire world which seems to exist externally will be awakened into the state of true knowledge. 35. Without renunciation sannyasa, to attain liberation is not in the least possible. But renunciation sannyasa truly means only inward renunciation. That is the renunciation of the first thought. I am this body and not anything else. That is not the assuming of any traditional outward guise such as auxiliary cloth and shaven head, therefore, in which every one of the four stages of spiritual development ashramas, one may be in outward appearance according to one's prarabdha. See note following verse 115 above. Know that level or stage of development ashramas is not an obstacle to one's attaining liberation. 36. Just as a wife comes to one only in accordance with prarabdha, which is the fruit of karmas done by one in former life, so the outward renunciation sannyasa also comes to one only in accordance with prarabdha. If outward sannyasa does not come to you of its own accord in accordance with prarabdha, do not have desire for it. If you remain free of all desire, including even the desire to live the outward life of a sannyasi, that itself is true sannyasa. To become devoid of all 37. To become devoid of all impurities in the mind is true renunciation. If one abides in the true state of self, which is devoid of all thoughts, that itself is all virtues and ethical conduct, dharmas. If one attains the state of being devoid of even the desire to become a renunciate sannyasa, that itself is the true attainment of renunciation sannyasa. 38. Even though he outwardly lives the life of a grihastha, a householder living with his family, a person who is devoid of the defect of thinking I am a grihastha is superior to a sannyasi that proudly thinks I am a sannyasi. This is a saying graciously uttered by Sri Ramana Bhagwan, the supreme philanthropist. Note: the saying of Sri Bhagwan referred to here is recorded in verse 840 of Garland of Gurus, saying as follows: know that rather than one's thinking in the heart, I have renounced everything, the state of not thinking oneself to be limited to the measure of the body and to be caught in the mean bondage of family life is a superior renunciation. The experience I am only I is true knowledge or Brahmajnana if along with the pure consciousness I am any adjunct is added such as I am a sannyasi, I am Shiva, I am Brahma, I am a grihastha or I am so and so, I am Brahma, I am a grihastha, I am so and so. That is ignorance, that is ajnani. If a householder grihastha does not feel I am this body, I am so and so, I am a family man, he is a knower, truth Brahmajnani who experiences his own existence as I am only. But if a sannyasi thinks I am a sannyasi, he is only an ignorant being, a jnani who identifies himself with the body and other adjuncts, and hence he is still immersed in bondage. That is why Sri Bhagwan used to say that Grihastha who does not feel I am a Grihastha is truly a better sannyasi than a sannyasi that feels I am a sannyasi. 39. A renunciate sannyasi is one who has severed all connection with the four caste varnas. Therefore, to inquire about a sannyasi in which caste was he born is he a low caste Sudra sannyasi or a high caste Brahmana sannyasi is only mischief born of the ego. 40. All distinctions of caste, varna and stages of development Asarmang relate only to the filthy body and not to self. which is the form of grace. Know that those people who have renounced and escaped from the attachment to the body by gaining a clear knowledge of self are not bound by distinctions of varna and asrama which are fetters. So, concluding verse Mudivurai 41. Know for certain that these 40 verses on renunciation are formed only of the ideas that have been conclusively realized in His divine heart by our Lord and Jnana Guru Sri Ramana Bhagwan, who is the sovereign of all the sages who have attained inward renunciation and who is the embodiment of the supreme power of silence. So here ends the book, A Light on the Teachings of Bhagwan Sri Ramana. So thank you for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video. Please subscribe my channel so that it may reach more and more people. Thank you, dear. Thank you so much. Om Sri Ramanaya.